Hello Buffs, and welcome to this week's edition of NewsTeam Boulder. It's Friday, March 3rd, and we're happy to have you here with us.
March 22nd marks the 2-year anniversary of the King Soopers shooting. Does continued coverage re-traumatize people involved?
A new law allows the sale of wine within grocery stores. So what does this mean for local liquor stores?
And finally, secondhand clothing stores might be one solution to keeping fast fashion out of the landfills.
Hello and welcome to NewsTeam Boulder. I'm Mimi Herrick.
And I'm Jessica Periani. It's been another crazy week with shelter in place and a shooting that sent a man to a hospital. Run, hide, fight are words that many CU students are familiar with. It gives them a plan of action if the worst case scenario becomes a reality. As of recent, students off campus have been impacted by multiple shooting threats and have had to figure out what to do at home to keep themselves safe. NewsTeam Boulder's Carolyn Kelly sat down with one of these CU students to see how safe they feel living in Boulder.
I was just on the phone with my mom about this actually, and I was like, I have to get out of here. Like, gun violence here is terrifying, and I'm afraid all the time. On campus, I feel safe. Like, when I'm walking around campus, I'm not afraid to walk on campus at night or to walk by myself. But once you leave campus, it's a whole different ballgame. It's unfortunate because even before I got to Boulder, like when I was in high school and even middle school, like it's the same plan everywhere, right? Like run, hide, fight is the universal American response to active harmers in school. And before I came to CU, I knew that. And coming here, like it's printed on walls and on posters and on the back of bathroom stalls because that's the world we live in. Because gun violence is so prevalent in our society, and like this past year has felt a lot more unsafe than recent years. So it's interesting because once I step through like the threshold of my front door, I feel safe. But outside of that is nothing. I mean, my roommates and I had to buy a Ring camera because we were just so afraid of like people knocking on our door all the time. And like our neighbors are cool, but they also seem to like be not afraid of these things, and I just like don't get it. So I don't know. I guess I feel safe in my home and in my bedroom, but I don't necessarily feel safe walking to my car. Like this most recent incident, when I was at home, I texted my roommate because I didn't know where they were talking about. I had no idea like what those streets meant or what that address was, and she had to like respond and tell me where it was. And my first thought on how to keep myself safe was to not leave my house. Just lock everything. She's out here like locking the windows and the doors and checking the balcony, and like I said, like we're sending each other updates from our rooms, and I don't think I slept at all that night. I wasn't necessarily worried that somebody was going to come knock on my door, but I was terrified of what might happen outside, and like terrified of what I might wake up to if I fell asleep. And also like, at the end of it all, the police said they didn't have a suspect in custody, and I was like, realistically, that's down the street. It's down Arapahoe. Like, the date of graduation has turned less into I'm excited to leave and start in my adult life, and more into I need to get the hell out of Boulder because I'm terrified of living here because of all of these things that have happened in the past week, but also in the past 3 years.
Campus emergencies and hazards can happen at any given moment with little to no warning. It is important we are aware of the procedures to follow.
Being prepared means understanding the run, hide, fight active harmer response. According to CU procedures, you should first see if there's a safe path available. If yes, run. Having an escape route in mind is helpful, and do not hesitate to get out if it is safe. When leaving, be sure to leave belongings behind and keep your hands visible at all times.
If you cannot get out safely, hiding is the next option. In this case, you should block all possible entrances, turn off lights, and lock all doors. Stay out of view and be as quiet as possible. This includes turning your phone on silent.
As a last resort, fight. This includes trying to disarm and incapacitate the harmer. Use what is around you as a weapon in order to defend yourself.
And remember to call or text 911 when it is safe to do so.
It's been 2 years since the tragic Boulder King Soopers shooting in Colorado. It is a day for remembering and for the healing to continue amongst the community. However, as the community approaches the anniversary date, it also brings anxiety during this time.
NewsTeam Boulder's Piper Vaughn gives us a look at how the anniversary is also re-traumatizing for the journalists who were first present on the scene.
The process of remembering the upcoming anniversary date of March 22nd continues to cause pain and anxiety for the local Boulder community. After being sent to the scene to report on the active shooter, the CU Independent's Henry Larson didn't know what to expect when arriving at the store.
It definitely made me shut down that night. We reported basically from 3 p.m. to 8 or 9 p.m. that first day. It was challenging to be a journalist in that situation because you had to go up and ask people to tell you about the worst day of their lives.
I'm standing on the Remembrance Center at Table Mesa King Soopers, where behind me 10 trees are planted for the 10 people's lives that were lost on March 22nd, 2021. As of recent, the perpetrator is held as being mentally incompetent in order to face a trial, following the death of 10 people, with lawyers confirming he's schizophrenic on Monday. The perpetrator will continue to undergo treatment and currently remains at the Colorado Mental Health Hospital.
I don't think March 22nd will be an easy day for me for years in the future. But I don't regret the work I did.
Henry Larson says he has also learned a lot from his coverage on the Boulder King Soopers mass shooting.
The story isn't as important as your own well-being. There are ways to do your best and try your hardest when tackling something serious that don't involve exhausting yourself.
Almost 2 years later, the healing of the horrific incident is still in the making, and the Boulder community, including journalists, continue to heal in their own way, no matter what that looks like. Piper Vaughn, NewsTeam Boulder.
If you are struggling with anxiety yourself, reach out to the CU Boulder's CAPS services or the Office of Victims Assistance for help. After the break, we'll tell you more about the new law that permits grocery stores to sell wine.
And then later, how much of our clothing ends up in landfills. Stay tuned. Colorado grocery and convenience stores beginning Wednesday started selling wine. NewsTeam's Alyssa Palazzo has more.
In what some are calling a David and Goliath-like battle, liquor stores like the one behind me may begin feeling the effects of recently enacted Proposition 125.
Colorado grocery stores like King Soopers, Trader Joe's, and Safeway began selling wine on Wednesday. Local liquor store owners like Bharat Garki are worried revenue may take a big hit.
As a raw person running a small liquor store, lots of liquor store not going to survive with this proposition.
Boxes upon boxes are filling grocery shelves, from Chardonnay to Merlot. One thing's for sure, there's going to be a lot more wine in Colorado.
A second proposition that didn't pass would have allowed third-party delivery systems like Instacart to deliver alcohol to your home, meaning it's the end of to-go cocktails that popped up during the pandemic.
It's no secret that CU students engage in heavy drug and alcohol usage. CU Health and Wellness Services at Wardenburg have recently begun offering Naxalone or Narcan for free to anyone with a Buff 1 card. Narcan is a temporary reversal of opioid overdose for drugs like fentanyl, codeine, morphine, heroin, and many other opioids. Fentanyl overdoses have become the #1 cause of death for individuals 18 to 45 in the United States. But what exactly is fentanyl? Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid similar to morphine, but up to 100 times stronger. Fentanyl is often used to cheaply dilute illicit drugs like cocaine and ecstasy, which can be found at any given Boulder party on the weekend. Just 2 milligrams of fentanyl is considered a lethal dose, and it has been found that 40% of illicit drugs that tested positive for fentanyl contained over the lethal dose. One club on campus wants to educate students about the risks of fentanyl overdose, and as well prevent them from harming themselves. Providing fentanyl test strips and medications that can reverse an overdose, NewsTeam's Tessa Stigler tells us more about End Overdose Boulder and the work that they are doing to keep our students safe.
The college experience is not without its parties, and it's also not without the drinking culture. And on top of that, an ever-increasing use of drugs.
And I just can't imagine being 18 and seeing that for the first time.
It's also becoming far more tempting for students to take unprescribed drugs.
And how I would want to get my hands on anything and everything and go as hard as I can, you know?
At CU parties, drugs are a given, but unfortunately, fentanyl is too.
I know that we all have lost a lot of loved ones to overdose, and even if you're not taking drugs or doing anything necessarily harmful, it's really important to understand how to help someone that is.
That's the reality. There is a drug culture at CU, which is being acknowledged as a real threat to students' lives and well-being. So, these two decided to take it upon themselves to do the educating. They started a club where they go around campus, frats and sororities, to do presentations about preventing the reckless use of drugs.
People are going to use drugs and alcohol, and I think that anyone who does so should be able to make an educated decision about how and if they use.
At each of their presentations, they go over how to test non-prescription drugs for fentanyl, as well as how to recognize and treat an overdose. They encourage open conversations around drug use as a part of their harm reduction stance.
An uncomfortable thing to talk about, obviously, but
Yeah.
I think that definitely doing these presentations, doing what we're doing, is destigmatizing the conversation around it.
And if you attend one of N Overdoses events, they'll send you home with this life-saving bag. Inside are brochures detailing what to do in the case of an overdose, as well as a CPR hygienic mask and 2 doses of Noxolone, which can help rapidly reduce an opioid overdose.
There's a lot of kids doing drugs and intense drugs because they have the money to do so. And with CU being here and all of the Greek life and all the partying, it just creates this perfect storm of really, really high risk individuals.
And while you can't stop a storm with an umbrella, it can keep you dry. That's exactly what this organization is doing.
Harm reduction doesn't have to be this crazy out there progressive idea.
The fact is that every weekend, students are doing drugs, and telling them no hasn't been helping.
Yeah, we just want to keep our community safe.
But with the resources this organization provides, it is possible to reduce harm and protect students from fentanyl overdose. For NewsTeam Boulder, this is Tessa Stigler.
If you want to invite End Overdose to speak with your organization, you can reach out to them on Instagram at endoverdose.boulder, where they post upcoming meetings, pop-up events, as well as any reports of drugs in the Boulder area testing positive for fentanyl.
Looking for some Friday night plans? Tonight, Program Council is having a free showing of Babylon at 8 p.m. in Kim 140.
From 5 to 7 p.m. tonight, the Pride office is hosting an evening of badminton at the Rec Center. All are welcome.
Buffs, don't forget to check your email for fall registration dates. Emails were sent out earlier this week. Make sure to mark your calendars.
Speaking of registration, summer registration has opened this week. Summer classes allow for more flexibility and lighten your workload during the year. Definitely something to consider.
It's also Women's History Month. All month, campus is celebrating with panel discussions, film screenings, and more. Keep an eye out for events you can attend.
Don't go away. Leah Mayer will be right here next with weather updates after the break.
I hope it's sunny and warm.
Me too.
Hi, I'm Leah Mayer with your weather. Today in Boulder, Colorado, it is a sunny day with not many clouds in the sky. The high is 47 degrees with a low of 29 degrees. In the next few days, it will be fluctuating in the 40s, and tomorrow will be cloudy, while Sunday and Monday will be sunny again. Across the state, there are a range of temperatures. The southeast it is getting into the low 50s, which is warmer than any other part of the state. Traveling to the west into the Rockies, it begins to get colder, dropping into the 30s and 40s. In the mountains, it drops down, even reaching 12 degrees. In the cold and snowy mountains, Copper has a base depth of 57 inches, Arapahoe Basin at 59 inches, Breckenridge at 54 inches, and finally Vail at 58 inches. Lots of powder on the snow this weekend. There is a ton of severe weather happening in the nation this weekend, so make sure you keep an eye out. Down in the southern states, there will be severe thunderstorms. In Texas and Arkansas, hail might be the size of baseballs or larger. Winds may get up to 50 to 75 miles per hour. Also, over 35 million are under threat for tornadoes. In Missouri and Arkansas, there may be flash flood activity as well. Up north in the New England states, there will be storm systems with heavy precipitation and moisture. Towards the northwest in Washington and Oregon, they will also receive severe storms with lots of precipitation that may reach Colorado in the next week. There is more activity out of our atmosphere. Two planets in the western sky are beginning to inch closer together. There is a planet conjunction between Venus and Jupiter, and they may even end up kissing in the sky tonight. Almost every week in March, you may see two bright stars in the sky that are actually these two planets multiple millions of miles away from Earth. Before you begin your nightlife this weekend, look up to see the nightlife between these two planets. After the break, NewsTeam's Nate Schaefer tells us about clothing waste and how some stores are working to save the environment.
You might be wearing some right now, low quality clothing that is mass produced, and so much of it is being produced that they're starting to fill up landfills. Over 100 billion garments each year. To put that into perspective, that's about one trash truck full of clothing each second. NewsTeam's Nate Schaefer explains how you might keep a lot of this fashion waste out of landfills.
Fast fashion is excess. It's an inalienable truth. There's just so much waste in the world. The fashion industry moves way too quickly to keep up with this kind of imaginary demand, this kind of created striving to keep up with the Joneses, let's say, or have a better fit than your neighbor. And yeah, it's actually just something that's not actually necessary in our current cultural zeitgeist. In general, thrift stores and buy-sell trades like Apocalypse are being pretty inundated with fast fashion. So low quality stuff that's made very quickly that is actually harmful to the people that are producing it. We actually can't really compete with those price points because it's like, how do you even get lower than something that someone bought for $2 to $4? Oh no, you don't think so? Not me. When overproduction happens by fast fashion brands or luxury brands, the government needs to be holding those brands accountable and, there needs to be fees for brands that are overproducing and then not even able to sell that clothing. Our mission is about making, secondhand accessible. And so while we have to pay rent on Pearl Street still, and we like to, give a fair reciprocity to our sellers and make sure that they're getting a good value for what they're selling to us, we also want to maintain that accessibility. So our aim is to, price stuff always lower than what it retails for, trying to give people a deal and trying to be an alternative to sites like Depop that are actually selling stuff for more than they retail for. My journey with secondhand begins 12 years ago actually at this location. What made me want to do it was the environmental aspect of it, that I had also kind of flirted with being in the fashion industry at large. It was harmful. There was a culture that was harmful, and also the environmental impacts and the societal impacts were harmful, I thought, to the world. And being able to resurrect things from our wardrobes that aren't being worn and give them a second life, and having that spark joy in you and reaching for that piece instead of the vintage piece. I think, that clothing already exists, and so have that be a pathway to finding your expression and finding your personal style that's a little bit different than finding it through Shein or Fashion. There's already so many articles of clothing in the world, really enough for us to clothe ourselves and our descendants for years and years to come. So check out Depop, The Real, Poshmark, all the secondhand websites. Have fun.
Thanks for tuning in to NewsTeam Boulder. I'm Mimi Herrick.
And I'm Jessica Periani. We'll see you next Friday at 4 p.m.